tell us about it in a non-spoilery way.
That's quite difficult.
Yeah.
5 people wake up dead and try and understand where they are and how they got there, and indeed is there a way of getting out.
Okay. How did this project come about?
Myself and my co-director Robin, we've been sort of throwing around the idea of turning this Jean-Paul Sartre play, Huis Clos, or No Exit, as it's called in English, into a film for like 10 years. And the basic principle of the play is that you've got 3 people in a room, and that room represents hell, and spending an eternity with these other 2 people for each of them is as bad as anything could possibly be. And it seemed like there was something in the premise of a horror movie set in hell that you could do something with. But in itself, the play wasn't necessarily particularly cinematic, so it required a fairly sort of vigorous reimagining, just taking the launch pad of the premise. So I wrote a treatment, which I sent off to Andrew Ellard, who's a script editor and script writer, and then he expressed an interest in coming on board as a writer. So I sort of, I embraced him fully, and he did that.
Brilliant. Tell us about your characters in the film.
Yeah, I play Livy, and she's probably the youngest of the 5. She's a very naive, kind of sheltered girl, and she really comes into her own in the film. That was really what appealed to me about the film. Is that she really grows and gains a sense of self throughout the film and does something incredibly extraordinary without giving too much away. Yes. I'll leave that there.
I play a girl called Patricia, and she's grown up in a really strict Christian family, and of course she finds herself in this position, which changes everything for her, and she has a moment where she doesn't have to be herself anymore, and so she has an incredible journey as well, and like all the rest of the characters, finds out a lot about herself. It's so hard. I'm like, what can I say? Yeah.
And so many great female characters in the film. In fact, there's only one male character, isn't there? Was that from the outset? Was that a specific thing that you wanted? And how did you go about casting each of those amazing actresses?
So the basic sort of premise of having, we've got like 5 people in a cabin in the middle of nowhere has been done in horror for 30 years or more. But there is a sort of a form for it that we've come to expect, which is 3 guys, 2 girls, and they fulfil certain stereotypical roles. And we were quite keen to do something different here. And we spoke about the sort of the possible gender balances that we could have and what would be particularly interesting. And in the end, we did settle on 4 girls and 1 guy, and we felt that was something that generated a very particular tension in the story, especially given the sort of the nature of the characters which we were talking about as well. Yeah. And when it came to casting, it was actually a more involved process than I was expecting. I thought, how difficult can it be to cast 5 roles? You just choose the 5 best people. And to a degree that's true, but we're also casting, in this sort of a tight ensemble sort of horror if you like, rather than ensemble drama, each of these characters has a very particular relationship with each of the other characters. Yeah. So it's almost like sort of a 5-pointed pentacle star. Yeah. So you're not just casting for who's the best person in this character, but also who plays off each other best, and who has what relationships with each other, and how will they work together. And even though we never had the opportunity to do a chemistry test where we got these guys in the same room as each other, what we could do is we had certain scenes where everybody read the same scene, and then we could cut the casting tapes together to see how they would virtually play opposite each other. And that was actually really interesting.
Wow.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah.
I would love to have seen that.
Yeah.
And as the lady, how did you all get on together? Were you okay, or was there some tensions and stuff, or not? Be honest.
Well, we were in the same room for most of the time.
Oh my god, yeah.
That's why I was it's quite an intense and intimate setting.
We all got on really well, really, really well actually. A lot of the time, because we had quite a small deadline, we had to get work done quite quickly, so a lot of the time we were in character, but the moments that we had, by ourselves was brilliant. It was very much a team, 100% from the day.
Well, I guess it had to be if you're thrown together into,
Well, I was about to say also the environment in which we were living in. We basically went up to sort of the coast of Norfolk,
Yes.
and in the middle of winter,
Yes.
and we were living in a trailer park.
Yeah, that bit was missed out. We were living, on caravans.
No one
Right.
said it.
Yeah,
There was nowhere to escape.
no, there was no. So,
Yeah. The sort of the reality behind the shooting mimicked the shooting itself.
Yeah.
We did sort of talk about Norfolk being hell itself,
oh.
you know, as well as just being.
After a while, yeah. And I mean, we had quite a long drive up to the location anyway. And it was this really bumpy roads, and I think we got lost a few times. When it gets dark, you cannot see anything. But yeah, no, everybody had to stick together. It was just one of those shooting.
Yeah. And what was this about the muck spreading machine or something?
So yeah, I mean, obviously we're trying to create a world that represents hell, and in hell there aren't things like birds. So as soon as a bird flies in or squawks, you're like, there's no birds in this version of hell. There's certainly no combine harvesters and massive muck spreading tractors, you know. But we were shooting a scene outside, and in the background we just have and like a tractor driving across the back of shot, and we're like, can we paint it out? Probably not, you know. So yeah, we were always sort of fighting the reality of the world when we're creating our unreal world inside it.
Mm-hmm. And what's next for each of you guys?
I've got a short film out that's actually in the States at the moment in festivals. It's called Chronicles of Courage. It's a very different genre. It's about the First World War. And that's playing at Palm Springs Film Festival and Rhode Island and the Big Sur this summer.
Very good.
I have a film out called The Forgotten, which should hopefully have some
Which
dates.
we showed.
But
didn't we, last year?
Yes. We showed last year at the FrightFest, which was fantastic. It's really great. And yeah, so we should have some dates for that by the end of the year. And I was away recently filming Death in Paradise, and so that should be out 2016.
Okay, very cool.
I'm currently at the script stage on my next project, which is called Last Flight, and it's a thriller set on a plane at the end of the world.